prove that they belong at the very top of European football, they have to survive this game against Atletico Madrid. Chaos, intensity, suffering. This is your Atletico versus Arsenal match preview. Welcome back to All About Arsenal. And tonight, I'm going to be cooking the real OG of the channel, Arsenal Domination. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Second stream of the evening. Just quickly recorded tomorrow's videos. Well, I accidentally knocked my camera over as I was just before the end, which is why I was struggling to get here on time. I did a you, mate, and decided I'd turn up late for this one. You know.
Yeah, no, that has to be my own team, bro.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm doing good. I'm buzzing. I scored a goal yesterday, first time since 2010, my friend.
And how was the celebration? Tell me not to deceive you.
Huh? Sorry, I've missed that.
How was your celebration?
One of shock, just stood there in absolute shock and jogged back to the halfway line. At which point I went, switch on, it's 1-0.
That's so cool, man. That's so
I would
cool.
say Mikel Arteta would love me, but he, you know, I'm a defender and I ended up in the penalty area of the other team. You know?
Yeah, but Cavalier does it a lot. You know, back in the day, you just get that moment when he knows gets loose in his head and he just starts bombing forward. And before I know it, he's going to get a good goal. So, once in a while, I think it's cool.
Do you know what was really funny? I won the ball, a couple of passes, got my way into the box, nutmegged the defender, stood up the goalkeeper and curled it left-footed in the corner. I didn't know I could do it myself.
No. And are there any replays?
Sorry?
Are there any replays?
No, I mean, you know, I was just in shock, mate. But then I played the second game later and was like Gabriel at the back, mate. Won everything, and you know we're gonna have to put in that kind of defensive play tomorrow. They're gonna be coming hard, you know.
No, it's gonna be crazy, man. So, but before I talk about the Atletico game, let's talk about tonight's game. What the hell just happened at the Parc des Princes?
I don't know. I was on a live stream. I was half watching it out the corner of my eye.
Oh, bro. It was...
What, you know, 5-4, you know, posts were hit. I don't think either side have heard of the word defending, right?
No, I mean, basically, there was no point defending. No, someone said that tomorrow is going to be Stalin versus Hitler.
Oh, wow.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
Man, good to have you, Johnny. We also have a couple of folks on the chat. Astro Kid, greetings to you too, bro. So, brother, let's just talk about...
Evening, gents.
Yeah, let's talk about Atletico Madrid for now. You know, their form has been very patchy. In the last 8 games, I think let me get my stats right. You're usually the stats man, but let me try this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah. So in the last 9 games, they've actually lost 7 of them.
Yep, they have, yep.
And I didn't know their run was that bad until I went to research this. And I was like, so how come their form has been like that in La Liga? Because typically, you know, there's always the Madrids and the Barcelonas. Then you have the best of the West. And typically, that best of the West, Atletico usually leads that charge. But right now, they are in 4th place behind Villarreal. Like, even with the way they're playing, they're still going to make Champions League next season.
Yeah, that's pretty much locked in, right?
Yeah, but the question now is, why is their form that patchy? Is it due to injuries? Is it due to...
Nope. Here's why. They've been resting players and rotating players quite heavily until the Bilbao game in the league to focus their efforts on the Champions League. They knew they weren't winning La Liga. They knew they pretty much locked in the Champions League place for next season through the league. And therefore, they basically prioritised the Champions League. In a similar way to why Paris Saint-Germain keep asking the Liga to move fixtures to help them. This was essentially Atletico's way of doing it because they haven't got the deep enough squad to necessarily compete on both levels. I'm hoping that you can hear me because I froze for a second then. They haven't got a deep enough squad to sort of compete on all levels, and therefore it's sort of similar to what Arsenal did last season when all those injuries stacked up and they binned off points in the league essentially to concentrate on the league, and I think that's what Atletico are trying to do here.
Awesome. So now let's talk about their run to the finals. They had the game against Spurs. That was one that was really sad to see because Kinski, had basically one of the worst games you've ever seen from a goalie. But after going through Spurs, they had that positive clash with Barcelona. No one actually saw them winning Barcelona the way they did. But now, with the teams they've played and the experience they have in the knockout phase, how concerned should Arsenal be about this fixture?
I mean, their home form in knockout competitions in Europe is exceptional. They've lost once at home in 15 years.
Whoa.
And that was against Barcelona in the last round.
Wow.
So that is obviously shows what Arsenal are looking at. Now, Arsenal is historically quite good against Spanish sides, but this is a whole new level and a whole new scenario. But we do know that the way Arsenal set up is actually really quite good for combating two-legged affairs. Right, Arsenal's form at the moment is at best patchy. So's Madrid's,
Yeah.
to be fair. And we look dead on our feet. And I think that's to be expected when you've gone deep in all competitions, right? We have gone deep, so it's not a surprise to see that the players are in that situation. So, from a Madrid point of view, they're going to come with fire and guts tomorrow, but they're going to come. But they're not going to pull players forward like we saw tonight. What I mean is, it's going to be high tempo, it's going to be physical, it's going to be aggressive. Can we test Arsenal's nerve? And we all know that Arsenal are in a moment at the moment where the pressure is really on. The weight of expectation from 22 years without a Premier League title, the weight of expectation of no Champions League ever, the weight of expectation that Arsenal needs to deliver trophies, which I think we can all agree we do, is starting to tell. And Madrid will play into that. Madrid will look to play into that tomorrow, and so they should. That's what I'd be doing if I was Simeone. So from an Arsenal perspective, we should worry because of all those factors. That said, we are, as I say, well set for this type of fixture. The way we set up defensively, the way we look to play these games is how I think you traditionally handle a two-legged affair.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich, and Paris Saint-Germain, as you alluded to tonight, look like an absolute ding-dong. But that is not what you normally expect in Champions League semi-finals, two-legged games in the knockout phases at any level, right?
Yeah.
It's just not what normally happens. That was a very, very unusual game historically. So I think it'll be an interesting affair tomorrow. I don't think Arsenal have to win the game, but they mustn't lose it by more than 2. I think they do that, I think it's over.
I agree. So let me get a couple of comments in the chat. We have Jimmy, keep doing your thing, fellas. Thanks for the love, bro. And of course, we have the GOAT, TG. Good to see you, Josh. Always good, man.
Do you know what? I'll give him the GOAT title over me because he's definitely that.
No. He's certainly the GOAT.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that really helped was the fact that there's no more away goal rule. Because back in the day, if you have a 5-4 win, all you need to do is just win 1-0 in your home and you're done. But right now, this 5-4 doesn't even mean anything to both PSG or Bayern because they're going to go into the second leg and then really fight again.
It's basically 1-0.
Yeah.
But that's all that is. It was just more entertaining for the neutral. But I guarantee you, for the fans in the stadium and the fans of those two teams watching it, that will have been a heart attack every 30 seconds.
Yeah. So obviously, Atletico is a team that is very known for their defensive compactness, known for their transition play and aggressive duels. But with the way Arsenal is set up, do you think we can match this very well?
Yes and no, AT. So the yes is, as I said earlier, we are very good defensively, generally speaking. I'm hoping I'm not cursing this. We're big, we're strong, we can be aggressive, we can match the physicality. I know we didn't against Newcastle in the middle of the park, but I think they had 3 physical players. Well, 2. They match us up well physically anyway. And therefore, that was kind of a battle there. Grounds. But we can match that, generally speaking. And I think, depending on who starts tomorrow, we've got the ability, if we choose to do so, to move the ball forward quickly and get the likes of Gyökeres in behind if Madrid leaves space.
Yeah.
We're not going to see the Madrid that we saw at the Emirates, by the way. We had a purple patch for 20 years, which made put the game beyond them, and at that point the game was over. I don't think we should expect to see that in either leg tonight. Not tonight. You know what I mean.
Tomorrow.
But here's the bit where I think Atletico are really going to be important, and where Arsenal have to be really careful, which is we ironically don't take too many risks in the final third, but we do in our own in our own
In our
first
own,
third, if you like.
yeah,
And Madrid pressed really, really well, and Arsenal had to be really careful of that. And I think
yeah,
it's really important if we put the ball into Zubimendi, and he knows how to play Madrid, that he takes one touch and it pings. Um, and not every time, but we look to do that quite a lot. And I also
yeah,
think that when the other thing we will need to do really well, and people won't like this, but I think it's going to be really important. And I think Martin Odegaard could be really important tomorrow. Not in terms of playing the balls in behind. We know he can do that.
yeah. But
But I
having
think,
that control, right?
yeah, yeah. But what I do think we know he can do it, but there's a sort of that element of fear about Arsenal at the moment. But our ability to retain the ball for a couple of minutes at a time, to take some of
Yeah,
the sting out of the game and to give the defence a chance to rest is going to be really crucial. And I think without Kai Havertz tomorrow, I think a lot of that is going to fall on Martin Odegaard. If we look when we were missing them both, we really struggled to keep hold of the
yeah,
ball
yeah,
at times. And I think it is important to be able to do that in periods. What Odegaard needs to do, and it's the criticism I've had for a little while now of him, is he needs to remember his ability to play the ball forward, even if it's risky and we lose the ball. I know we want control, and that will be really important tomorrow. But equally, when we've got the chance to get someone in behind, let's do that and let's try and hurt Madrid. And that's a bit he needs to mix it up with. But his ability to keep hold of the ball will be crucial. But as I say, the big concern for me is Atletico's press because of where we take risks on the field.
yeah. But this is the thing now. I love this comment from Johan. He says, Arsenal must play freely like PSG tonight. AZ and Odegaard must be creative. But I think that counters what you're trying to say because if I'm going to play freely, it means that I might have that gung ho approach. So do you think it's something that we should at least try to exploit from time to time in the game? Or we should just focus on holding the ball a whole lot more?
I think in moments, sure. But you can't defend for 90 minutes. Well, you
Yeah,
can, but you one mistake and it's over. But
yeah,
no, I don't think you go. I do not think you go and win two-legged ties playing like that all the time. I think teams win two-legged ties by not losing away or not losing heavily away, winning at home, but also playing to their strengths. Now, Paris
yeah.
Saint-Germain and Bayern's big strengths are obviously going forward anyway. They're two
Attack,
attacking
yeah,
teams. That
yeah.
that is their main strength.
They attack heavy actually.
Yeah, Arsenal's is the opposite of that. And I also
Hmm.
think if you do that, you play into Atletico's hand. We saw Barcelona do that, and we saw what they could do to them. Yes, I know that they won at home, Barca. Sorry, as in Barca
Atletico.
beat them at Madrid. But equally, Barca had to come fully out at
Yeah,
all the time. They had to go all guns blazing, and Madrid didn't have to because they knew what lead they had, and they could hold on to that. And their plan was to. They didn't care if they lost. They just didn't want to lose by enough games to. Tomorrow, that is not what they are going to do. It is 0-0. If Arsenal come out and play that gung-ho spirit, you will see Madrid counter really, really effectively. We saw them do it at the Nou Camp so effectively. And at home, I think they could kill us. So, no, I don't think we should. But I do think that we need to be braver when we're in the final third than we have been in recent
recent
games.
weeks. Yeah,
Were on several occasions that we forget about in the first half of the season. That's what we need to get to. We need to play like we did at the Etihad with intensity, desire, but also be brave when we are in those positions. But we shouldn't be going 8-9 forward like we saw tonight because I think that's a recipe to get beat 3-4. And if you do that, you're out the game. You're out the tie.
yeah. But here's my concern. When we played against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup semi-finals, we beat them
3-2 and then 1-0.
3-2 at Stamford Bridge. And when they came to the Emirates, that game was very touchy. Obviously, we just had anxiety about us and Harvard had a late goal and we won. When we played against Sporting CP, we had a late 1-0 win. And the second leg too at the Emirates had this edge about it. So in these two classic fixtures we've played, where we went away, got a good result, and came home, we didn't even look like we had control in both games. Obviously, we were kind of putting them at arm's length, but there was always a potential moment that could come where they could actually score a goal and take it into extra time. So is that the same approach that we used to take against Atletico?
I wouldn't agree with that characteristic of particularly the Chelsea game. I was in the crowd for that Chelsea game. Honestly, I have never been more relaxed in a football game. I mean, I have, obviously, like the Wigan game, I was there 4-0. But honestly, in that stadium, bar one free kick, and only because we couldn't see, because it was the far end, couldn't see where it was, I wasn't worried. I think we could have played another 3 hours that night and Chelsea wouldn't have scored. But in all honesty, we had
Yeah.
full control of that game. And
Yeah.
actually, what we were doing is going, "Come on, then, Chelsea, what have you got?" And if you come and you commit men forward, we were ready. And they didn't do it until the 89th, 90th minute of that game, and we scored in the 92nd minute because we
Mm-hmm.
attacked with that. I think what you said is more accurate of the Sporting game than the Chelsea game, but maybe that's because I'm watching on telly, and it does feel different when you're in the stadium to when you're not in the stadium. But equally, I think we were in a little bit of a difficult period in form at that point, and I think that was playing on the minds. And my big concern around Arsenal is that mental state that we're in, that desire. We were speaking about it on a podcast last night, rather than anything tactical or
Yeah.
player fitness. It is that weight of expectations. That's what really concerns me about Arsenal right now. But I just don't think going kamikaze against Madrid is the right thing to do. I think if you can win it, brilliant. But I mean, if you offered me a draw right now, and people can crucify me for this if they want, I'm taking 1-1 all day
Yeah.
long, and and bring it back to the Emirates.
Yeah,
But it
maybe
doesn't
just
mean that the
one game.
Emirates will be a non. To your point, and this is where I do agree with you, it doesn't mean that the Emirates will be an easy game, even if you come back with a draw, even if you come back with 2-1 win, or a calm affair, because Madrid are such a quality side. We know what
Yeah.
they can do, and they showed it in the last round.
True, true. I love you said that comment from Johan. He said that playing Simeone can be very tricky because they are very fast in the counter attack and of course they pack a plane. So in the wings, they have players that are very good in transition. I think Lukman might not play this game. I'm happy about that. But Alexander Sol,
I think he'd be in the squad, mate.
yeah,
I
but
don't think he'd
as a
start
sub,
though.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
But Alexander Solot has actually been in very good form in recent weeks for them. 12 goals in the league, 19 goals overall. Is he a player that's going to start the game with Griezmann, or do you think Alvarez will come back to the side?
I don't know in terms of how Madrid will set up specifically. I mean, we know what players they've got out of a game, so I don't know what personnel they will have. I suspect Alvarez will start. To be honest with you, I know he missed the last game. He's listed as a doubt for this one. As you say,
Yeah,
Lookman, I think will be the bench. But whoever they play, they've still got those fast forwards, and Johan is absolutely right that can do that way. I have a feeling this is going to be a different game from a Madrid perspective as well. Last game they were away from home first game, at home in the second
yeah.
game. They also knew what Barcelona were going to do. They knew Barcelona were going to play a very high line. Arsenal, by the way, play a high line. By the way, we've got the highest line in the Premier League. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, Barcelona's line nine, is
Yeah,
like
down
It's Ange Postecoglou's wet dream, right? But
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's kamikaze high. So they knew
True.
they could hurt them, to Johan's point, with speed on the counter. That's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily going to be as effective against Arsenal. So I think it will be really interesting to see how Simeone sets up as well, because if he parks it past Arsenal, we'll go, all right, let's make it 0-0, boys. Yeah, happy day.
Mm-hmm.
So he needs to
Yeah,
come out to some extent, but I don't think he'll be able to use that speed quite as effectively, because I think Arsenal's line will be that little bit deeper. We can go toe for toe with them, and we
yeah,
can match up physicalities. So I think it will be a much more cagey affair.
yeah. Like a chess game.
Yeah, I
Everybody
think
been on the
so.
edges. Yeah,
I
fair
think so.
enough.
But I don't think. Johan's exactly right about Madrid. It's generally one or the other. But I suspect tomorrow it's going to have to be something a little bit different from them too.
True, true. Okay, man. Let's talk about our boys. Since the Carabao Cup final,
Do
we've
we have to
lost to
talk
South.
about that?
It's like old ones. Because I think what kind of pisses me off was that the first 50 games we had just three losses. The Soboslai won the free kick, the Buendia late goal, and the Matthias Cunha corner. Those were like some good goals, yeah. But from the Carabao Cup up on this point, we've played I think just 7 games, and we've lost 4 of them.
Yeah.
Lost to Man City, lost to Southampton, lost to Bournemouth, and lost to Man City again. And you can see how these lads are playing right now. There's so much pressure on us. So we managed to get the result against Newcastle. You saw how everyone looked so relieved when the final whistle went off. Going into this game against Atletico Madrid, where we have Kai Havertz, a potential doubt, where we have
He's out,
Martinelli,
mate. Him and Timber are confirmed out.
you see. So we have him and Timber out. Then of course Eze, I think Eze should still be fit. The question now is
Eze trained today and is on the plane. Whether he's fit enough to start, we'll find out.
Awesome. So, what is the best approach we need to take for this game?
I think in some ways, the Champions League, I think there's slightly less pressure on Arsenal than there is in the Premier League because they
Mm-hmm.
haven't had that lead, which, I've always felt it's 6 points rather than 9 in reality because City had that game in hand. And it doesn't mean they're
Yeah.
going to win it, but you have to assume that they were going to.
Yeah.
And it's been 22 years. Now, I know we've never won the Champions League, but everyone makes us favourites for the league, and rightly so, right? I mean, at the start of the season, it was Liverpool. I never had them as my favourites. I had Arsenal. Let's be blunt and
Mm-hmm.
obvious, honest about that. And right now, if you said who have I got a pick to say the league, then City would be my favourites. But
Yeah.
Arsenal, that dial has moved, and I think that adds to the pressure around Arsenal. And Arsenal players won't be immune to that outside noise. And I do think that a lot of our recent performances have been a lot down to the mental side. I don't think we've overly changed tactically. We've had the odd opponent sort of play differently against us, but not massively, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I think City sort of set up with that unusual press game against us, which
Yeah.
baffled us in the final.
Yeah. We
But
walked,
uh,
walked,
but
walked the
but
trace for
but
them, man.
but the turning point in that game was Kepa's massive error. And by
Yeah.
the way, I don't think Kepa is a bad keeper. I think he's perfectly fine as a backup. One of the best backups in the league. He shouldn't have played in the final. I understood. I
Yeah.
knew he was going to, and he shouldn't. I understand why he was picked. He just shouldn't have been picked because Arsenal needed a trophy. And I think had we done that,
Yeah.
you lift the pressure. Right now, it's the pressure. I think there's less pressure in the Champions League, and I think you see the players relax a little bit more. That won't necessarily mean they'll be more expressive, but they won't be worried about the mistake. And I think we were talking about this yesterday, right? But Arsenal, some of those negative plays in the game, I think were worrying about making a mistake. And
Yeah.
it wasn't the only one, but the one that I always go to is the most obvious, which is the Odegaard playing in Gyökeres, where he
Yeah.
plays a safe pass backwards to Zubimendi. That's not tactical, by the way. That
That's,
isn't
that's
Odegaard.
totally mental.
It is what if we lose the ball? Let's keep
Yeah.
the ball. And I think there's a worry about giving the ball away and making mistakes because they don't want to be blamed in a title race, and that's easy inhibiting them at the moment. So I think tomorrow they need to go with a pragmatic game plan. They really
Mm-hmm.
do, as we've discussed, but they need to go with that belief, and they need to go not worry so much. And I do think that in the Champions League, I think there will be less of that compared to the Premier League.
Okay. Awesome. Now let's talk about our wingers. This has
Wait,
been
what wingers?
bro. This has
We
been
haven't had wingers since Lundberg and Overmars.
man. This has been terrible this campaign, and Trossard his last goal was against Aston
In
Villa.
fairness, though, AT, you're
Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
But you talk about wingers, but very few wingers in the Premier League have been exceptional this season, by the way.
But can you really compare it to ours in the sense of the fact that when you look at the timings in the last goals most of them scored, it kind of raises alarms, right? Trossard was actually in a purple patch early in the campaign, but his last
Yeah,
goal was
that
against
sort of
Aston Villa.
autumn, early winter period.
Yeah. Of course, we know Madrid and his struggles. So the issue of Max Dowman, is it more on the lack of defensive side or is just too much pressure you want to put on the 16-year-old? What's your honest take on the Max Dowman situation at the right hand side with Madrid struggling?
Yeah, look, Saka coming back and being fit is going to be crucial to Arsenal, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's still the star boy for me. I know he's had a difficult season with injuries,
Yeah.
as has Kai Havertz, but that is perfectly normal after such a serious injury. Understandably, Arsenal fans go, well, look at Ewan Timber and think that's the norm. It's not the norm. Actually, what happened to Saka and Havertz this season is far more normal for players coming back from injuries,
Yeah.
like
They
the
goes
ones
here
we've
and
got.
there as
So
usual.
I do think that's impacted him, and I also think that Saka's numbers are probably better than they appear to be because he's had a few assists taken away, but also just attacking numbers generally are down across the league. The point I was making earlier was very few wingers have actually had brilliant seasons. Semenyo, I think, is the real exception to that. There's
Mm-hmm.
probably one or two others as well, but attacking numbers are generally down. And Saka's, despite missing a lot of the season, I think is still in the top 10 for sort of in the attacking
G.
metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, not necessarily just GA, but I'm talking about balls into the
Chance
box,
created,
chance
both, yeah,
created, touches in
yeah,
the
yeah.
box, touches in,
XG. Mhm.
successful take-ons in attacking third, winning the ball back high. He's still really high on that. So I think he's a crucial one. Um, I wouldn't go Madueke tomorrow because I think he's really struggling with that knee injury. I think it has been impacting. We know he's inconsistent in the final third in terms of delivery, but we're not seeing him sort of be successful in the take-ons and stuff. He's trying them, but it looks like he's a little bit in within himself, and
Yeah,
I don't think that's
inhibited
mentally.
somewhat, yeah?
Yeah, I think it's his movement is he's really struggling with that knee. So I think tomorrow I'd be starting Martinelli on that right side and Eze on the left side. Would be where I would go because I think Martinelli offers you that defensive work rate, albeit he didn't necessarily do that against City when he came on.
True.
But he offers that pace if Saka's not fit to start. If Saka's fit to start for 60 minutes, 65 minutes, then great, there you go with that. But I wouldn't be playing Dalman for two reasons. One, I think you have to start Eze on the left-hand side because I think his and Odegaard's partnership is starting to look relatively promising. He's also looking really in a mentally strong position and is looking on good form at the moment. So for all
Yeah.
those reasons, he starts. But Eze doesn't offer you the best defensively. And I think if Eze starts tomorrow, it's got to be Hincapié behind him for that defensive
Yeah, yeah,
stability.
yeah. It can be color. It can be color.
No, not with Eze.
Yeah.
But I therefore don't think you can go down one on the right hand side because again, the defensive side of his game is lacking. Understandably, he's a 16-year-old kid, right? And he's still
Yeah.
physically developing, even though he's massive for 16. He's still nowhere near his full-grown adult body. I don't think it's the pressure or anything like that. He's a kid that just goes out and plays. No fear, no, nothing like that. But I think it is that side of his game. Now, I know he's there to be the attacking outlet, but I think that's what makes him perfect right now for the last 15, 20 minutes when you need a goal, you need something different, you need to give the manager something different to think about. But I think the other thing we need to be careful here is everyone talks about Bukayo Saka being overplayed in the early days of Arsenal. And in some ways, that is true. What he
Yeah.
does ignore is context around it, which was Arsenal weren't that great. Arsenal's depth wasn't there, not just in that right wing position, across the piece. Arsenal weren't competing for trophies, not really. And therefore, trying to get in a backup to someone you know is going to start consistently, you're not going to get the level in. Madueke, he might not be the first choice we have, but Madueke is the best backup we've had to Saka
Quite
without
a
doubt
while.
for me.
Yeah.
And also that's probably the top level you're going to get because you have to have someone that can sub for him, but also understands they're second fiddle to him because they are going to be second fiddle to him because he's that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, there are other options as well. Look, I would have loved Semenyo on the left hand side or Rodrigo on the left hand side.
Yeah.
I always thought Rodrigo.
Or Rafinha when he was still in Leeds.
Yes, but again, when he was at Leeds, he had to go to Barcelona competing for trophies. He wasn't coming to Arsenal when we had Saka ahead of him because we were, fourth, fifth at the time?
Yeah. True.
That's what I'm saying. And we also needed players like him, Gabriel, Thomas Partey would have been around at the time. We needed them to, Kieran Tierney when he was fit, Ben White, to play every minute of every game because that was the only way we were getting into the Champions League and back to competing for trophies because when they didn't play, it was Rob Holding. I mean, Ben White's slightly different to Tomiyasu.
Yeah.
But
The quality
Tomiyasu was
golf
coming
was
for team.
crazy.
Nuno Tavares. And that's not to criticise these players, by the way, but that is the level of backups that you are generally getting in that. If you look at squads now, Newcastle are a great example, very similar to where we were. Their backups, there's odd pockets where there's a good backup, but it's not consistent. It's not great across the piece. So, of course, Saka played minutes. And you can look and say, well, could he have come off 10, 15 minutes earlier? Yes, he could, but you're talking maybe 150 minutes across the season. It's not massive, and it doesn't necessarily move the dial. We're now in a position where we don't have to worry about that, but that means that we don't have to do the same as we did to Saka, to Dalman, because the squad is in a very different place, and we can bring him through to help his body develop and to help him into the team. And I think we need to remember that. So I think that for me is a defensive side and that attacking side. And I know I talked a lot about Saka there, but I think it's important context for Dalman because the squad is in a very different place.
Yeah, but at the same time, we had a certain Ethan Waneri who came on for Saka in 2024 when he had that long-term injury because Sterling was taking up the place. Should we have retained? Yeah, he did actually a good job. Should we have retained Waneri as his backup rather than wait for Madueke? Do you feel if Waneri had a certain role of games that Madueke had on the right-hand side with Saka being injured, he would have done as good as Madueke or better?
Well, the answer is we don't know because obviously, we haven't got a crystal ball to do both things. My gut feeling said it would be probably in similar numbers. But what I would say to that, it would be he's a very different profile of player. He wants to sort of move inside. And also you're putting a lot of pressure on an 18-year-old from 2 points of view. One, we're a side going for the title and expected to deliver. And I think the kid is really, really good. but also you're taking a lot of physical strain on his body, and he's not in the same physical place as Miles Lewis-Skelly was. We
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
him really struggle in the back end of the season last season because of the
yeah.
number of minutes he played, and I thought the number of minutes he played was, a really good number for someone of his age. But we
But
saw his
still,
body really struggle, and with the
yeah.
pressures of this season and the number of games we'd be expected to play in that scenario this season, because we haven't seen Saka start 3 games, by the way, in a week
Yeah,
all
yeah.
season. I wonder how his body would have coped with that, and therefore that would have impacted his output. Whereas Madueke is a fully grown man with
Mm-hmm.
Premier League experience and all of those things. So I think it's a really easy thing to say, well, why didn't we do one yet? But I think that ignores all of those things. And I think it's a shame what's happened with him in Marseille that hasn't worked out with De Zerbi going.
True.
Because I think that would have been really good for him. High pressure environment, pressure on the pitch, will need to perform, and it hasn't worked out there. But I understand why Arsenal sent him there, because they thought, well, Max Dowman can get his minutes. He can get more minutes out in Marseille, and the squad should still be big enough to cope with him because Jesus is back. And from that point
Mm-hmm.
of view, I understand the decision. I would have kept him personally because I think
True.
winning the trophy is so important, and I think having more players around is beneficial from that point of view.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but I understood why he went, and it was one of those ones I didn't kick off about because I understood fully why Berto Arteta and Wanieri did it,
yeah, yeah.
and Wanieri had
Because
a say in it, of course, as well.
yeah, because if we're being honest with ourselves, in the early part of the campaign, he wasn't really getting games to play. So
No,
a move was actually a good thing for him, but that didn't work out. All
and
right,
that's
so let.
understandable as well, At. I don't know what you think,
Mhm.
but you look at the squad. You've got to earn your place in there.
Yeah,
And the side was winning games consistently, playing well. Lots of competition for places. So it all made sense
yeah,
as to where
yeah.
where his minutes were.
Yes, especially with the likes of Eze, you see how Berino, you see how Odegaard, like they're going to be very hard for him to play in attacking midfield.
Yes, Saka,
But
Madueke, you've got to get minutes for Dowman.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you. So let's talk about injuries for a bit. On the Atletico side, Jose Maria Jimenez is out with muscle injury, and of course,
Yeah.
speaking about Barrios out with thigh injury. While on the Arsenal side, it's Timber, Merino, and Kai Havertz. So, how big of a miss has Timber been for us since that Everton game? Do you think Mosquera has done well enough in that spot? Because obviously, putting that white is done right now.
I think Mosquera's done a good job. He's a centre half playing at right back. I think, for me, he starts tomorrow. No question for me.
Mhm.
I think Ben White's time at Arsenal is at an end this summer. And it's a shame. I like Ben White. It's sort of very similar to Kieran Tierney. His body just can't do it anymore. And I think he's really struggled. It's a real concern when he's come in. He's looked vulnerable defensively. I think, I think it was Bournemouth. He really cost us. And look, we were shocking against Bournemouth. I'm not putting this on Ben White at all, by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
just to be very, very clear, but he's really struggled. He can't play tomorrow for me. I know he's experienced, but Mosquera has played Madrid before, understands the stadium well, and I think is more defensively robust. We lose something going forward compared to Ben White,
True.
no question about that. But I think that does mean that you can do something different in your midfield and go, do you know what? Zubimendi and Rice can get further forward rather than our fullbacks. We can use them to get further forward. So I think Mosquera plays for me tomorrow. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
really
agree.
do.
But
But we
with,
do miss Timber because I think, well, he's not as good going forward as Ben White. He's better than Mosquera, and he's obviously the best defensive fullback.
yeah, yeah, but with all this talk of losing something forward with Ben White, he hasn't really been attacking.
Nope.
In all honesty, because the narrative for Ben White somewhat is that okay, he's not like Timber. He gives us so much in the final two. I think we're still using the eyes of 2023 to look at him when he had that triangle with Saka and Odegaard.
Yeah.
But in recent times, he has really struggled. Like that game against Sporting, when Diomande used the outside of his boots to play that ball to Araujo in the third minute behind Ben White.
Yeah.
It was sad
I
to
love
see.
Diomande, by the way. Absolutely love him. I would have signed him in the summer rather than Mosquera, but I'm not complaining at all about signing Mosquera, by the way.
I know Mosquera has been a steal for us, man. Yeah, but of course, we have Mikel Merino. He's still hopeful that he can play this season. Do you think there's any point in him doing that? Or should focus on getting ready for the World Cup?
Yeah, well, Marino doesn't go to the World Cup if he doesn't get back into Arsenal, I think, for a start. Secondly, I don't really care about whether Marino goes to the World Cup or not. In fact, actually, I'm quite happy for as many Arsenal players that don't play for England to stay home as possible for the
Yeah,
World Cup
yeah.
in reality. And I'm sure you
Mhm.
feel the same, but for your nation, although there are no Arsenal players And
Yeah,
Arsenal.
and we didn't even go to the World Cup too.
Well,
So
I didn't.
then,
Yeah, I was going to say. I was trying to think. You didn't qualify. Um, um, for, for a second, I put you in the wrong country because, of course, I used to live in a
in Ghana,
in an yeah. I was going to say not a million. Well, I mean, it's still quite a number of miles away, but not in that region of Africa.
yeah, I get you, bro.
But what was I going to say? But yeah, you know, but I do think we have missed Marino.
Timber and
Well, I think we
Merino.
missed Timber, but I think we've missed Moreno too, right? And I think, um, Timber. Obviously, we know what he brings to the side. He's so good defensively, and he still has
Yeah,
some attacking output. He could on another season he could have had 3 or 4 goals this season. He's come close on a number of occasions at
yeah,
that back
yeah,
post in particular.
yeah,
And Ben White has the attacking going forward, but we haven't seen the output this season. But again, attacking numbers are generally down, as I said, in domestically. But I think we are missing Marino for a number of reasons. I think his versatility is really important. His ability to look, he's clunky, but it's not that he has poor technical ability. He just looks a bit clumsy and clunky. But he also has an ability to crash the box, to finish the ball. He's got defensive. He's decent defensively, but I think his physicality and his leadership is what we're really missing. And the fact we can
yeah.
use him as like a bit of a Swiss Army knife in 2 or 3 positions off the bench is really helpful to us. So I think we have really missed him for that point of view. And I think if we can get him back for the last couple of games of the season, all of those attributes could be really important for 10,
Yeah,
15 minutes off the bench.
and it's also really good in the air too.
Yep.
From time to time. But
Well,
the
not from time
final,
to time. He just is. I mean,
yeah, true, true, true. But then again, Kai Havertz just can't catch a break, right? Like these injuries have really plagued him terribly this campaign. And at what point do you think we have to cut our losses, or do you think you just have to keep managing?
So I think there's 2 things here. I think on the injury front, similar to Saka, I think we really tell on his injury situation next season. I am not surprised by the injuries to over those 2 this season because, as I said earlier, coming back from those types of injury, this is fairly normal. This is what happens to most players for about 12 months afterwards, right?
Yeah,
So that doesn't concern me. It concerns me if that goes into next season, we see the same again, because then you're talking 2 years on, and you're into the realms of Gabby Jesus rather than other players that sort of come back. Timber, as I say, was the exception
yeah,
to that. Like that's very unusual for that sort of recovery from and to be able to play the number of minutes he did last season is very unusual. So from that point of view, that doesn't bother me. My view on Kai Havertz is, and I get very irritated with this. Well, you love the signing. No, I didn't love the signing. What I do is defend him from what I think is over the top criticism, and I think this applies
yeah,
to other players. We love to scapegoat. My view on Havertz when we signed him was he's going to take some transition in because he's moving to a number 8 position. That hasn't worked, and Arsenal moved away from that. But we moved him from a number 9 to a number 8, basically. And
yeah,
I got what we were trying to do. We were trying to replace Xhaka, but with a little bit more physical output going forward and a little bit more offensive stuff. That's kind of what the plan was. It didn't work. Let's be
true.
honest about that. But since he moved to the number 9 position, his output has not been bad. His total in his 3 years here since he came here, he's the 3rd highest on goals and assists for Arsenal. Well, he's missed most of the last 18 months or 15 months with injury. Obviously, he's got some game time and some numbers in that. And the first 4 or 5 months, he was playing in that number 8 position where it just wasn't working well. And he's still 3rd, by the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
his output is not trash that people like to say it is. What I do think he is, and as I said, I thought the fee was a little bit high and the wages are excessive. But unfortunately, that's kind of what you end up paying for 2 reasons. One, when you're trying to improve the squad to get yourself competitive to winning trophies. Manchester United are doing it. They're overpaying on wages and transfers, but the players they are doing that for are generally working out and they're getting output for them, even though
yeah,
they're overpaying and getting overpaying on wages. I
true.
also thought that he would transition over 2 to 3 years if we were remaining on track and still going forward. That he would transition from the starter to a squad player. That is essentially what is happening to Kai Havertz. Now, what I do think though is that if you can get someone like Julian Alvarez in the summer, that is an upgrade on Kai Havertz, but you don't need both of them. And at that
Yeah,
point, you then look to move on Kai Havertz because his biggest issue is he's not clinical enough. I think his link-up play is good. I think his work ethic is good. I think he brings others into play, can move really cleverly to pick up little pockets between the line. He can play those simple little quick passes around. All of
Yeah.
those things are good, and his finishing isn't horrific. It's
Yeah.
just
But,
not of the
yeah.
level that we need it to be. And he
Yeah.
misses. He's a player that needs 2 or 3 chances a game to get a goal,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
mean
and
proper
I think
chances, not
yeah,
just
and I
half
think it's
chances.
really sad that sometimes his off the ball movement is quite good to allow him get to those positions. But unfortunately, when he gets there, he usually misses them. Like the game against Man City in the Carabao Cup final, if he
It's
bury that early chance, the game will have had a different outlook. You know,
that late header as well, right? Yeah, these are that's exactly it. It's that he needs 2 or 3 decent chances to get a goal. Whereas Gyökeres, if you give him 3 chances, good chance in a game, he'll get you 2. The
true,
problem with
true.
Gyökeres is
He can't get
he
there.
not always.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So that's where I'm on Havertz is that look, if you can get a decent fee in the summer, of course you do it. And I think if Alvarez comes in, you look to shop him. Even if you get slightly less than you might otherwise, because Alvarez is an upgrade. But I do think he's made a contribution. I do think the hate towards him is over the top. And I know
Yeah,
people say, "Oh, you're just defending Arsenal all the time and defending the play." I'm defending them from over the top criticism. It doesn't mean there aren't criticism there. And what we both just said there, that lack of clinical finishing is the big thing that lets him down.
yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, so I have a couple of folks in the chat. Ian says, "Will you play Diamond tomorrow?" No, bro. I don't think we would. We have already spoken about why we shouldn't. But I think he should be on the bench. Oh,
Yeah, I think he's an option off the bench, particularly if we need a goal late on. I don't necessarily expect to see Dalman tomorrow, as we discussed earlier, for the reasons we did. But
yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked to see him in the second leg. And I think if we're in a position where we need to get a goal, I'm certainly Dalman is one of the first names I'm looking at.
True. True. Okay, so now let's look at the latest results from both sides. Like the form is just terrible on ends. So Atletico, their last five, they lost to Sevilla two
Have you
one.
got any green highlighter there? I can't see much.
They lost to Sevilla 2-1. That game, if I recall, Bonia scored for them while Akko Adams scored and Goodage. And of course, they lost to Barcelona in the was it in Champions League? No, no, in La Liga actually, where Simeone scored first, then Rashford and Lewandowski won for play for Barcelona. Yeah, Rashford, your Englishman. What's your take on his performance in Barcelona? Do you think he'll be retained? Do you think he should come back? Should I help him get a chance in the World Cup squad?
I mean, Rashford has a chance of making the World Cup squad just because there's quite a few players out of form. But he wouldn't be necessarily at the top of my list for going. I think he's been okay at Barca. I don't think he's
Mhm.
been exceptional. I think he's had moments. I mean, I don't watch a lot of the games, but so this might be a little bit unfair.
Yeah,
And I think if those that watch Barcelona more often than I do were to disagree with me, I would certainly defer to them. But from what I understand and from what I've seen, that's kind of where he's been at for this. But I think Barcelona will make it permanent. It will depend on what Manchester United do in terms of their manager. They might want him back. They might have a place for him. It will depend on the
hmm,
fee because Barcelona we know have financial difficulties, and it will depend on the wages. So I don't
yeah,
necessarily expect him to be there because right now he's on loan, and that makes it affordable. I'm not sure a permanent transfer is doable for Barca, and I think
true,
if it
true.
is, I think there are other players I would target if I was Barca. So
Yeah, I agree. So of course, they also had a 2-2 draw with Sociedad, but that was in the Copa del Rey. Lukman and Alvarez scored for them, while Benatia and Oyarzabal scored for Sociedad. But the game went into penalties. Solot and Alvarez missed in that game. Atletico were out of the Copa del Rey. And of course, they now played Elche. That was a strange one. Elche is currently 14th in La Liga, and they beat Atletico 3-2. It was a late goal from Silva that let it up. But they finally ended their run with a win against Athletic Club. On Arsenal's own side, one Sporting CP 1-0, lost to Bournemouth, that terrible game. Drew with Sporting CP to get to the semis, where we are today, of course, lost to Man City, and of course, defeated Newcastle. So it's fair to say that Arsenal is in better form than Atletico, based on the results, yeah?
based on the results, sure. But as I said earlier, I don't think we should read too much into the form, particularly from a Madrid perspective, because of the way they've rotated. They went back to their full strength side, or as much as they could, given their injuries, for their last game, having not done so for their previous games
Hmm.
in La Liga, uh, and they win, right?
Yeah, true.
So Arsenal not in a great run of form at the moment, but I do hope that They should take encouragement from the Etihad performance against City, even if they didn't get the result. Although I do wonder what would happen if Kushinov had been sent off earlier in the game,
Yeah,
albeit Gabriel could have equally been sent off.
true, true.
But does Gabriel end up in a situation if Arsenal are still 1-1? But it's been and gone. But the performance was encouraging. The Newcastle performance, I don't think was as bad as people say it was.
Mm-hmm.
I do think we missed opportunities to go and try and kill the game. I don't think it was fun watch at all, but I don't think it was a horror show that people say it was. Bournemouth was absolutely dire.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Arsenal
terrible.
Sporting was just Arsenal doing what they need to do to win the tie. So
Yeah,
I think Arsenal's form probably not quite as bad as it appears either. But there's no question that Arsenal's attack is not in a great moment, and Arsenal are not in the best run of form. I
true,
think
true.
those two statements can both be true. Well, obviously, because I just said it and I say what I think rather than what I think people want to hear. But I don't read too much into the form going into tomorrow. I think these are two very evenly matched sides who will play out an attritional game.
Yeah, I agree. So a couple of more questions on the chat. Ian is asking me for me the Hincapié deal permanent. I think yes, we have, but it's gonna be like the Raya deal where
It's done. Yeah,
yeah, it's
it's
pretty much done. But I
yeah.
think this
It's
one
like
is
Kivior going the other way. The reason it was done in that way was because Porto couldn't afford Kivior. Arsenal couldn't afford to do Nkapie without the Kivior money from the financial fair play rules,
fair play, yeah.
which, as you'll know, AT is one of my favourite things to talk about. I love money. I love numbers.
Yeah,
Fire away with your questions.
yeah,
But yeah, that's why it was done like that. It's basically a loan deal that will definitely be made permanent this summer.
yeah,
We
awesome.
don't
So,
have to worry. And
so
by the way, great news when it is because he's been some player for
yeah,
us.
he has been awesome for us. And I love this comment from Johan. Talking about the weekend, we're gonna win 3-0 and we're gonna have own goal from ESR, Iwobi, and Leno.
The world's greatest goalkeeper, right?
All right, man. So let's go to the predicted lineups. So right now, for Atletico, I predict that they will have Oblak in goal, Bulgaria on the left hand side with Longley and Kodjo, while Lorente will be on the right hand side. Simeone's boy will be on the right wing. Banea should be on the left wing. With Barrios injured, Cardoso will play alongside Koke. Why Solo to play with Griezmann? But I think
My
Alvarez
question about
might.
Koke is, where's Hoki?
But I think Alvarez considered ahead of Solo. So looking at this lineup, doesn't it still any fear in you? In all honesty,
I mean, man for man. I mean, Arsenal. You match those teams up. Like, there's players you take from both sides, but you're not saying Madrid. That Madrid defense isn't anywhere. I don't think any of them. Excuse me, I've got hiccups. Get into our defence, for instance. I think our two centre midfielders are definitely a match for them both. I think where you'd look is goes Simeone over Madueke, albeit. Well, I think there is a decent chance that is the 11 Arteta picks tomorrow. I would make one change to that, which will be Martinelli on the right, assuming Saka's not fit to start. I think, Biano is obviously a threat. I mean, I like Cardoso and Koke in the middle, but they're not of the same level as R2 for me. But the front two, Griezmann might be getting an older man these days, but still some player. Sorloth got 2 goals at the weekend again. And you've got the likes of Lookman coming off the bench as well. So,
yeah.
Hanko
And
is a
Lenormand.
serious doubt for tomorrow.
Hmm.
But Lemorman, I think that he could well come in. But it sounds like Hanko is out for tomorrow. Maybe that's just smoke and mirrors because we know managers do that. But Hanko, by all accounts, is a serious doubt for tomorrow.
Okay. But on the Arsenal side, minus Madueke for Martinelli, does that not look okay for you?
Yeah, I think that I'm not shocked if that's the side tomorrow, but I'm equally not shocked if Martinelli starts on that right hand side.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, now let's look at key tactical battles. Midfield is going to be very key for us.
So really quickly, just on Ian's question on Wanyeri, I think it depends on what Arsenal do in the summer, right? But very quickly on the summer, I think there is a world here where obviously Jesus goes. I think there's a world where Havertz goes because what's his face, Alvarez potentially comes in. But I think a forward comes in, which means if we get an offer for Havertz, it's possible he goes. I think Trossard will go. And I think there's a world where if we get a decent offer for Martinelli, he goes. I'm not against him staying as a depth piece on the squad.
Like a squad player, not bad.
So I think Arsenal will look to bring in 2 forwards with a possible third, depending on departures.
True, true,
I think
true.
for Wanyeri needs consistent minutes, and I think Max Dowman can get the extra minutes if Wanyeri goes out. So I think Wanyeri goes out on loan, and I do think that's probably the right option for Wanyeri. But I think he has a long-term future at Arsenal, and I think Arsenal should be saying, "Look, this is your pathway. This is how we see you. We want you to be in a position to replace Odegaard going forward, not next season, but going forward, and we want you here doing that. But to do that, we need to see you getting." Let's say you go to Crystal Palace, as an
Mm.
example, a team that's decent enough. Newcastle could be another good option where you can go and you're going to be the player that sort of plays consistent minutes, and you're going to get 2,000 minutes next season, 2,000 minutes playing consistent in the Premier League. I think that would be ideal for Arsenal and Ethan Wanyeri.
Yeah, because if you remember, we actually loaned Saliba to three different clubs: Saint Etienne, OGC Nice, and Marseille before he was now ready to play for us. And now see how good he is. So there's
Yep.
another question from Ian asking when Timber will be back. You want to respond to that?
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Just looking for my crystal ball. I mean, we don't know, right? Arteta doesn't
Yeah,
tell us the truth about injuries. And look, I am not going to slander him for that or slate him for that in any way, shape, or form, nor should he, right? Do not give the opposition any advantage by giving away information you don't need to give. As
true.
fans, of course, we'd love to know where they're at, but I don't know. I am concerned he's not back yet because we were told he was close to being back on several occasions. He's not travelling tomorrow.
Yeah,
I suspect before the end of the season, but we don't. I don't know is the honest answer. And as I
okay.
say, I am not going to slate managers for lying about the injury situation in press conference. They all do it, generally
Yeah,
speaking.
yeah, but talking about practical battles, when we played against Atletico at the Emirates in the group phase, we really dealt with them with set pieces. There was the one that Gyökeres scored with Gabriel came from him. Gabriel
We
also
got
had a
to a
very
short
good
corner
header.
as well from
Yeah,
one of the set pieces we scored
you
from.
know. So is it something that you feel Simeone will be very mindful of to prepare for? Or do you think it's going to happen to the team again this time?
I'm sorry, mate. You broke up for the question. What was the question?
Yeah, I think, no, but when I started Atletico in the group stage,
Yeah. Sorry, I got the pre bit. It was the
yeah.
question.
So the question now is: do you think Simeone will actually prepare more for the set pieces again, or do you think Arsenal will still exploit that flaw in the game against them?
No, look, set pieces are going to be a big part of Arsenal's game. Chances are probably going to be limited against them. I was talking about the back line isn't as strong as it used to be, and it's not as strong as Arsenal's. But I'd expect Atletico to dominate the ball and limit Arsenal's chances. Just because Arsenal, I don't think will be overt in terms of their attacking output. I think they will look to make sure they don't lose the game first and foremost, and I can
Hmm.
understand that in a two-legged tie.
Yeah,
Um, but set pieces therefore will become a key weapon. Um, I think he will have certainly studied the Arsenal short corner routines at the weekend, given he was done by one at the Emirates.
yeah,
And Arsenal maybe will be looking to exploit that again. And I thought it was really clever play for Arsenal to keep doing that against Newcastle, draw them out. Very, very interesting what they did there. So I
yeah,
think they will have done some work on that for sure. But it certainly won't be. It will not be his entire focus. I don't know if you remember the comments by Jorginho that were taken a lot out of context, where he was talking about they're never fun to work on. Players don't enjoy it. But it is important. It is really important that you work on them. But if you work on them and only that, and he wasn't saying Arsenal did, by the way, despite how it was reported, that isn't what he said.
yeah,
That
yeah,
you take the joy out of it and you lose everything else. And I think that is true. And I think I can't see Simeone working entirely on that and defending them because he wants to exploit the weapons he has. Similarly with Arsenal, they're not going to spend their entire time working on it either. They will
yeah,
be
true.
working on everything, including getting some rest and recuperation back in. Arsenal won't be overly training at the moment. There are times this season where Arteta said we've not trained that much. We've done 20, 25 minutes set short sessions because it's about keeping the bodies going because it's a long, hard season. So I
Yeah,
don't think either
yeah,
side will have done loads and loads on the pitch. What they will be doing is studying it in the film room.
true, true. So this comment from Johan about Busquera and Lukman. Do you think it's going to be a challenge for him if Lukman actually comes into the pitch?
Well, it's why I'd like Timber, but that's not an option. But I think Mascara is less risky than Ben White right now. And Mascara, obviously faced Madrid before, but wouldn't have faced Lookman because he wasn't there. He obviously only arrived in January. So I
Yeah,
think that is a legitimate concern. I think that is the case down both wings where they have pace down both wings if Lookman and Simeone are both on. something Arsenal are going to have to be aware of, and you certainly don't want early bookings for the fullbacks. So
Yeah,
I think this is right and fair. But I think that's the case. Whoever plays right back for Arsenal.
yeah, true. So Gabriel and Saliba against Solot slash Alvarez slash Griezmann. Who wins that battle?
We'll find out tomorrow, won't we? But I mean, I think reality is Madrid will get at least a goal. But I think if you say they score a goal, the attackers win the battle, then they win out on that one. But I think Arsenal will give as good as they get defensively. To be honest with you, you know, we we the Saliba and Gabriel relish these types of fights.
True.
Griezmann is a slightly different prospect to say a Haaland, but they'd be well up for tomorrow. I don't think we need to worry about that.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go to match predictions. What's your honest prediction for tomorrow?
I'm taking 1-1 right now, but I'm predicting Madrid 2, Arsenal 1.
Awesome.
How about you? What's your prediction, my friend?
So mine will be a classic Haram 0-0 draw.
I'm taking that as well, by the way.
Yeah, just give me that and let me go back to the Emirates so I can hook them up in the second leg. That will work for me. All right, so that brings us to the end of match preview. Thank you so much, as always, for cooking with me tonight. Guys, follow Arsenal Domination. I'm going to put his page in the description and all that. But before we go, there's a comment from Johan I think we should talk about. He says Martinelli is wanted by PSG. Trossard down to performance and Antonio and Shadow to replace them. Yeah, and of course, there's a picture that was circulating in social media recently with Beta chilling with the Cyprus and totally collaboration. I don't think that's to do with transfers because transfers is done like under wraps, right?
I agree. I agree. There is no way if we are talking about Osherman on whatever day it was that the picture was taken recently, that Berta is being pictured there.
Yeah.
No way. That's not how Arsenal do their business. They do it quietly in the background. There's no way that is. I think it was exactly what you said. Or we were talking about transfers of other sort of players that were there.
Yeah.
I do not. Yeah, I'm not saying Osherman wasn't raised, but equally Arsenal will have a long list of targets. But I don't see Osherman at Arsenal for many reasons.
Yeah.
I
The
think he's a great player.
baggage.
He's a great player, but age, wages, transfer cost, I just don't
Baggage.
baggage. I just don't see it. I am not complaining at all, but I just don't. It doesn't feel a very Arsenal signing. It doesn't even feel a very Berta signing to me.
True, true, true.
And also, he seems really, really happy there as well.
Oh yeah. He's quite he's loved actually in Galatasaray, and he's earning a good buck there too. So I don't think he'll want to leave anytime. I think if he's going to live there, he'll probably go to Saudi Arabia or something.
Yeah, I mean, what does he need to prove, right? And I think coming to the Premier League at his age, having not done it before, is a big risk for him too. Plus, he will lose out on wages because no one's matching the wages because of the tax difference.
Oh yeah, for sure,
You
for sure.
I can't remember what his wages are, but I think I worked out, and I'm slightly doing this from memory, but I think I worked out to match his wages that he gets in Turkey because of a tax difference, he would have to pay something like 620 grand a week to match his wages
Yeah,
because of the tax in the UK compared to Turkey. That's not tenable. He'd have to take a pay cut wherever he
yeah.
goes.
Yeah, anywhere in Europe actually.
And why should he? And why should he take that risk with his career, right? It just doesn't seem feasible to me.
Yeah, and he's playing a place where he's playing regularly. They enjoy him and whatnot. He gets the goals for them.
Oh, he's
So I
playing
don't think
regularly at Arsenal. Don't get me wrong, but as you say, he's loving life. The climate's probably great for him. He's being paid well. He's playing every week. The fans love him. Yes, he could get some of that elsewhere, but why? Why would he need to at his age? He doesn't need to prove anything. I mean, look, if you want my ideal for the summer transfer window very quickly, I think a new right back to replace Ben White. I'm not against that at all. Yeah, at least we can be accused of doing long throws if we get him. Whereas at the moment we don't do it, but everyone says we do. I think Norgard will go, but I wonder if Miles Lewis-Skelly might move into that position. I wonder if that's behind some of the reason why he hasn't played quite so much this season and get some of those minutes. But I'm not against a centre midfielder coming in there. But I think the key for me is the left wing. I think you go and get the best available left wing on the market. That's not Rodrigo because he's got an ACL. And I think he's really happy in Madrid. I never bought rumours that he was going leaving.
Kvaratskhelia?
That would be the ideal, but I think the smokescreen about him going to Arsenal is about contract talks at PSG, which are apparently progressing really well, and he's really happy there. Shock horror, but 6 weeks after that comes out or whatever it was, we're talking about new contracts, and he's really, really happy. That was about wages. That was always contract talk for me. But if he is available, he's the man. So I think you get whoever the best left wing on the market is. The alternative is, and I think Eze for Trossard is what will happen. I'd like to see Martinelli upgraded, but I'm not against him staying, as I say. But I think in a world where you can't get a lights-out left winger because it's not on the market, don't force it. Although I'm not against Nusa. Nusa for Martinelli, I'm absolutely fine with. But would be to go and get a real lights-out number 10 as well to compete with Odegaard. But some kind of elite attack on that left or centre midfield to really provide competition for Odegaard or be the start on the left would be ideal. I think Jesus goes, and I think you bring in the striker, something like that. I mean, I haven't worked it through. At some point, I will do my usual. This is what I would do realistic if I was Arsenal in the summer. Not FIFA, not Champions League manager where, well, you have two world-class players in every position. It's not how football works. No side in the world has that. But a realistic one. I haven't done that yet, so that's very sort of sketchy. But, something like that would work. But I'm certainly not against those two names that were put there. I think Nusa, I think, is not more than just a prospect. I think he's a very good player, and I think very, very gettable. And Schneiderrup, again, real promising prospect who I think sort of having a bit of a breakthrough this season. So, I think really good names there. But I don't buy the Osherman links.
Awesome. So, Arsenal domination, what's up with that? What's new, and what should we expect?
I've just done 2 videos for tomorrow. One on the fixture stuff from today, because I put out 2 videos today, so I didn't do a third. And then obviously a preview for tomorrow. But look, if anyone is in the chat that hasn't subscribed, please do. I really appreciate it. I'm still a very small channel. I'm nowhere near as big as AT. But I put out daily shorts. They're 3 minutes. Look, my patter is very much here's what Arsenal. Here's what I think Arsenal's logic is. Here's what I think about it, or here's the criticism. Here's the other side. Here's what I think about it. That's the sort of stuff and the angle I sort of come at it. I don't really do sensationalism one way or the other. I'm relatively positive, but look, I've got shorts out every day. They're the 2 tomorrow, but do me a favour and help me out. I'd love it, but I'm not catching AT anytime soon. If Josh is the GOAT, AT's the kid, and I'm the. I'm nowhere near Xing the womb, but
that's a good one. That's a good one. All right, guys. So please don't forget to like and subscribe. Obviously, I'm going to put Tom's channel on the chat today in the description. Arsenal domination, he does very good with that. It takes some time to also listen to his shots. Amazing stuff. Dom, as always, thanks for coming through this evening. Hopefully tomorrow will be fun.
Well, it's not going to be fun. No, it's not going to be fun. Let's not pretend it's going to be fun. I mean, I don't know if you're watching it in the local bar there, but you might need a couple of bevies to get through. But
yeah, I agree, bro.
That and a defibrillator,
No, come in. It's Arsenal. I'll check my blood pressure going into the game.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't do that. You'll have a heart attack.
All right, bro. Always good to have you on the channel, man.
No, thanks for having me on, my friend.
Thanks, man. And have a good